It is a brand new edition, our first off-season edition. In other words, first Jason is miserable for the next 6 months edition of Flyers Daily, brought to you by Ticketmaster. Make more memories loud. But it's a special edition because it's a Monday, and it's a Monday with Meltzer. They coincided the end of the season with our next episode, which is this one. And he joins us from PhiladelphiaFlyers.com and NHL.com. It is Bill Meltzer. Bill, it's all done. It's this we're not players. We're not in that same rigid schedule like they are. Get on a plane, practice, but to some degree, yeah. But when the season ends, it is full stop, man. It's just like, boom, it's over.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for the first few days, because you have the exit day interviews, right?
Yep.
On our side of things, there's a lot of stories to cover.
Yep.
Developing content to carry you through. There's the Stanley Cup playoffs to watch on a daily basis.
Draft lottery coming up.
the draft lottery obviously being a huge piece of what's not only immediate but ahead. But then it hits you, right? And then it's a long summer when you're not in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it hasn't really sunk in yet. But it will soon enough, and then it's not too long out because at first it feels nice to take a little bit of a break.
Yeah, just have a little relief.
It's way too much of a break.
Yeah, it's too long. That's the problem. Yeah. And like we're in this situation again. Like I'm sick and tired of not making the playoffs. Yeah. And here's where I'm going to start in this episode, and we're going to get into Danny's press conference and exit day and all of that. And I'm so tired of this not playoff thing because we grew up in an era when it wasn't if they were in the playoffs, it was if they were healthy, if they were playing well, if they were going to go on a run. But now we're in this, they haven't made it. And I see this, I am going to delete my Twitter account if this whole thing just becomes they need to tank for McKenna next year, because I can't go down this road. I can't see this every day. I've had enough of this losing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And
my sense is the players have too, Bill.
Yeah, no, they have. It drains you. Say from our side, but it's the preparing and trying to come up with you want to have some right of okay, where do you take this, right? How do you build off of this or off of that?
Yeah.
When you get into the game, when you get to the time of the year where every game is isolated and even if you're winning at that point, it's kind of too late to do anything for another year, another summer, it really drains you. And when you're already talking about throwing away another entire season,
are we seriously having those conversations a day? Yeah. We're having those conversations a day after another season without the playoffs?
Yeah.
Come on. I get 23-year-old people, they got the runway of decades and decades of infinite life ahead of them. Yeah. And they don't have the scar tissue that maybe some of us older folk have. But Jesus, I can't go into this mindset of, let's tank again. And frankly, players can't have that mindset. Their career is not infinite. It's not.
No, I mean, look at Travis Konechny is a great example.
Yep.
Right. Getting into his late 20s now. Think about where the Flyers decided they were going to. The first talk about when Ron Hextall came in. That was 2014. That was 11 years ago.
He asked Ed Snyder for patience, something that nobody's ever asked him and received.
That's for patience, right? And in the process, because you had Drew in his prime, you had Voracek in his prime, you had Wayne Simmons in his prime, right? And that was enough of a foundation. The Flyers were a bubble team for a number of years and trying to, but what happened was that group, they get older, injuries happen, whatever. They didn't really replace the core group. They did develop guys that were gonna be the guys that would grab the mantle as being the next guys to lead, while those guys were still young enough to win or here anymore even at a certain point. And there is a not insignificant risk of repeating that with this group, the next group, whatever. You need obviously a number of things to work your way, but the endless process of okay, well we're tank this year, we're tank next year. Well, we need to lose X number of games down the stretch again to increase our odds. I mean, it's
but yet root for the development of a single player,
right?
And Michkov, like that's what that group has in common. We
Yes.
want to lose, but we want to see Michkov score a hat trick every night.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, no, for sure. But you also want it to mean something too.
Yeah, like I don't frankly, I don't give a shit if the guy scores a hat trick in meaningless game after game. Yeah, that doesn't do anything.
No, or for him, he doesn't take anything from it.
No,
and
he doesn't want it.
Yeah, I mean, you play you play this game, which is the ultimate team game. You play it to be part of a winner.
Yeah,
and
to win.
You want to contribute to that winner. And yes, there are times you need to take a step back. And I mean, the Flyers are hopefully they get to that point where Colorado reset their rebuild.
2016, 17.
And I mean, there's a lot of luck involved, right? Because they were the worst team in the league that year.
By 21 points to the second worst team, Bill.
Right.
I mean, Jesus. They had 48 points.
Yeah, that year, right? And they get Makar, which was not a small risk. You're taking a junior A defenseman who's going
undersized,
who's going the collegiate route. That can obviously that paid fantastic dividends. Sometimes you take a guy who dominated at a lower level and he never puts it together. Jay O'Brien, he tore apart the same prep school league that Jeremy Roenick tore up, that Tony Amonte tore up. So there are guys who developed from that path who ended up to go on, obviously, to very significant NHL careers, but there's risk because he was never really tested against upper level competition, and obviously you rolled snake eyes on him.
Big time. You drafted Bobby Orr.
You need some of those risks to work out, and
it's crazy because we talked about it, and I've talked about the 17 draft because that draft was known as the drop off after 2. Yeah. If you recall, it was Hischier and Patrick and Hischier, and because Patrick got hurt that year, probably why he dropped to number 2. With that, I think if I remember, it was a Cora injury and a surgery in March with the Brandon Wheat Kings that year, and then the drop off was after that, and then Heiskanen goes 3rd. And then you got Makar that goes 4th. And then you got Elias Pettersson that goes, and Suzuki goes 12. And
that's the draft for Jason Robertson's a 2nd-round pick.
Yeah,
right. And you just, wherever you need to find players, and again, and you need no small dose of good luck too, as well as good planning and good development. But that's how teams turn a corner, and quite often they turn a corner because of some of those guys that. Because if you come away with the one impact player from the top, which is great, you want to come away with that. But it's the teams that seem to come up with multiple guys, the Braden Points, the Kucherovs, right, who are not 1st-round picks, but they produce results like a guy that you would expect to be at the top when you look X number of years out. The Flyers really need some of that.
Yeah, no doubt. I had heard on 32 Thoughts that Friedge and Kyle mentioned, maybe it came from their thought line or whatever it is, that Rasmus Dahlin would ask out in Buffalo. And I know he was asked about it as well because he's just tired of the losing. Yeah. This is a number 1 overall pick, and it wears you down. Like Buffalo's that example to the extreme because it's a culture issue. One thing that I really took away from exit day, Bill, even from Danny to some degree. And I know a lot of people will say, you keep selling this culture thing, but I thought it was very pronounced. And, the way the team finished the year, even that last game, it was a sloppy ass hockey game. It really was. Yeah. But there was no lack of compete to try and win it to the final horn. I thought they finished the year with integrity, and yes. I thought we heard about integrity a lot in exit day as well.
And I think it's critical. The Flyers got a result, honestly, that was beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
like I know some people. Well, why did you challenge the goal in the third? You did because you go out and you compete, and because it was goalie interference, and
cut and dry.
It was the right decision. I don't.
If you don't challenge that, I think you're inviting an infection at that point. I really do.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, for going down the stretch and getting the coaching change bump and being out of it bump that they got to land with the fourth best overall odds is pretty fascinating to me. They're in a pretty good position.
Yeah, it's the anti-tank nature of the draft, where if you have the fourth best odds, that means most likely you pick fifth or sixth just by the percentage. But
that makes no sense to me. But yeah,
because
the weight.
We have teams like the old Pittsburgh Penguins to thank for that.
Yeah,
right. Where it was automatic. And I said, I think I mentioned this to you week or so ago. Like, I remember the year that Pittsburgh was tanking for Mario and making darn sure they got him.
Yeah.
I remember they came into Philly and they lost the game 12-4. Oh. And it was so embarrassing that the Flyers would score a goal and nobody raised their sticks. They just skated to center ice.
Got off the ice.
They weren't even trying. Not only was there no talent with the Penguins at that point, they weren't even trying. It was just play through him. The goalie left to completely fend for himself.
And they got rewarded.
You can't have that. You can't that's not it goes counter the integrity of the game. You have to compete. And if you don't have the talent, you're short here, there, and a lot of places. Which
water finds its level.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it, right. The Flyers finished where they deserved to finish.
Yeah, they earned it.
And but it wasn't because they weren't competing or trying.
No.
So it'll take care of itself, honestly.
Yeah.
In that regard.
When is the draft lottery? It's usually during the first round of the playoffs, if I'm recalling correctly. My brain's not working the way it used to. But
yeah, and I should know the date off the top of my head.
I think it's like May 7th or May 10th, something like that. So it's in the next couple of weeks. It's pretty imminent. Let me ask you about Danny's press conference. I'm going to go to one particular part right out of the gate. He was asked. It was late in the press conference. He was asked about Alexei Kolosov. And, Kolosov plays that last game of the year. And there's obviously been a lot of noise around Kolosov since last summer, frankly, when he didn't show up for development camp. And then the noise amplified when he didn't show up on time for training camp. And Danny said something, and it bothered me, not because of what Danny said, but because of what it implied to me. And he said that Alexei was not happy with his season. He wouldn't get into detail. And I think by not saying what he wanted to say, was telling as well. But Alexei wasn't happy with how his season went. And frankly, I got mad when I heard it because I said, this is a guy that didn't show up for development camp.
Correct.
Didn't show up on time, claimed he missed a flight or something for training camp. Yeah. Like all these things. And like I hear that he's not happy with his season. Well, he should have done a lot of stuff different.
For sure. To me, even though Ivan Fedotov was not happy with the season either and did not perform to an expected level, but he was a complete pro about it.
Good teammate too, by the way.
A real good teammate, good guy, fit in off the ice. Even from day one since he got here, how many Russian players come over here doing their interviews in English or attempting to do it
within 4 or 5 months?
When he was relegated to the third goalie, and which happened. Now he got off to that terrible start,
hideous,
right? And then he stabilized and actually had several pretty good starts. But as soon as he had the next bad one, that's when he was dropped to third, and he went a month without dressing for a game.
Yeah, and
he didn't sulk. He didn't ask to go back to Russia. He didn't do anything other than put his head down and work.
Yep.
And I said he was a total pro about it. Whether he ends up having a time in the NHL next year, barring injury or not, that'll play out in the upcoming months. I think the odds are a little bit against him.
I agree.
Right, but in terms of his approach, his professionalism, no complaints whatsoever. Whereas, I mean, with Kolosov, there was a lot more he could have done to give himself a better chance.
Yeah.
He missed all training camp, right?
His entitlement bill cost him a huge development year. It really did.
It really did. And while he went down briefly with the Phantoms, he didn't want to be there. I think it got to the point where it was so obvious that he didn't want to be there that it became like, well, we don't want you around if you don't want to be here.
Yeah, you're a drain.
So,
I think that whole thing's over. I have no inside information.
And it's funny. We were joking around a little bit in the media room the day. Oh, well, he's the best Belarusian goalie we've ever had, Belarusian goalie, right? Yeah. Well, and I thought, well, actually, they did have that previous one, Kirill Ustimenko.
Yeah.
But Ustimenko actually came over. This wasn't good enough, right? But he came over. He came over at age 20, played ECHL, trying to work up run at a time. So
a little bit of a good run with the Phantoms for a little bit.
Effort was there, right?
Yeah.
At least he was the guy who really kind of attacked, trying to learn English and trying to fit in and be part of the team. And I just have not seen that from Kolosov. So I don't feel a ton of sympathy.
Yeah, I'm really turned off by a guy saying he's not happy with how his season went, like kind of insinuating that, yeah, I'm not happy with my playing time or my situation. Right. You didn't do anything to earn it, buddy. Yeah. And the NHL is not a place to hand out, tokens. Yeah. You don't get tokens. You got to earn everything you get. But let's talk about Michkov because, it's obviously the biggest storyline of the year. Danny talking about him as well, I didn't think he'd get to 26 goals. I didn't think he'd get to 20. This guy comes in, plays 80 games. He ends up with 26 goals. Dude just grooving down the stretch. He competes every night. You feel like, even though we don't speak a lot to him because of the language barrier still, and I think that'll be a big lift this summer that he'll take on. I just feel like there's a competitor in there, a guy that his teammates, he's done really well in ingratiating himself into a locker room. That's hard when you come with the expectation level that he comes with. Danny spoke about that. But I think he does it kind of in a goofy way. He's mic'd those guys, which I think is funny. Yeah. But I think all said and done, the fact that he got over here when he did, got some of the hard coaching that he got the results that he got, and plowed through adversity. Man, is he just way ahead of the curve of where I expected to, on draft night, for example, when they took him. Yeah.
I think to me, the biggest takeaway from Matvei's rookie season, which was said about him, I liked what Travis Konechny said too, about him. But I think as high as the expectations are, fairly so, and will continue to only go from there. No one's expectations for him are higher than Matvei's on himself.
Yeah,
and
which is awesome.
which is fantastic. Like he really believes that he can and will be a superstar, and it's almost he's driven. He's driven in just this way that only great players are.
Yeah.
And he's just ask him about his 26 goals. Well, he thought he would score more.
Yeah.
Right.
He's still ruining the post that he hit.
Well, yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Exactly. And then he would joke about that. That's the other thing too, is that I can't wait to see more of the sense of humor that he has, because a lot of times when you see that he understands the questions, mm-hmm. It's really just getting comfortable in saying what he wants to say. Yeah. You could see that a little bit with Fedotov, where he can basically say it, but not say exactly what he wants to say.
Yeah, you can't verbalize it that in depth.
Yeah, so I think that Matvei wants to get to that point where he's fluent enough where he can say what he wants to say. But just you ask him about if he plays 16 minutes, he wished he played 18 minutes. He plays 18 minutes, he wished he played 20 minutes. If it is a 20-minute game, he wished that a shift or two he had done something a little bit different. He pushes himself, and there is a lot to work on in his game. which is
There is.
it's a scary thought because there's a lot of details that he still has to master in his game. And think about how good he is right now.
He's aware of it too.
The surface.
Yeah, and he's aware of that too.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing, Bill, that ingratiated himself. I'm talking to some guys, obviously at exit day and throughout the year, players and staff and stuff that I'll go back and forth with. I think the biggest single thing he did that ingratiated himself was he never made it about his numbers or himself. Yeah. He repeats, "I'm here to win, team win, not individual win."
Yeah.
And some of those guys that come over that are going to be huge stars, they don't win initially because they are worried about meeting the expectation of the stat page.
Yeah.
He wants to put up numbers, but in an effort to elevate the entire team to a winning status and ultimately be a champion. And he's repeated that from day one.
And
I think that's why they drafted him, frankly.
It's not just lip service either. Yeah. We've talked to him, obviously through Slava, but there's the body language part of it. When there's been a game where he's had a 3-point game or done some, here or there, we had to speak. If the Flyers did not win on that night, he was much more subdued.
Yeah.
Right. You can't fake that. I've seen guys who they say all the right things, but boy, they are sure pretty chipper. You lost 5-2. You had points on both of the 2 goals, so you're in a pretty good mood. I mean, they're guys that again they say the right things. Michkov, I think, has a dual expectation. Yes, he wants to. He wants to succeed. Put the numbers up, but the numbers mean nothing to him unless you're winning.
Yeah.
But if you're winning and he doesn't feel like he's contributing enough, he's still not happy either that way, which just drives him. I mean, that's kind of that's really what you want. You want a guy who's I don't want to use the word selfish because there's a negative connotation. I mean selfish in a good way, where he wants to feel like he's contributing at a level that he's pleased with, and the team is winning.
Yeah, I think he's such a driven player. I don't think he wants to do well in this league. I think he wants to dominate.
Yes.
And that's what great players want. They want to dominate. And I think that you just feel like he's got those, there was a documentary, I remember I talked about it here before on, it's kind of greatness. They had Pele on it. Wayne Gretzky was on it. Obviously Jordan, what's the common denominator of greatness? And one of the common denominators is hating to lose, and you can see that he hates to lose. The joy of winning is great, but losing travels with you.
Yeah. Now
it aches.
I'm trying to remember who said this about Clarkey, but they said that he hated to lose more than he liked to win.
Yeah.
Which isn't always the best thing because a guy can burn out that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the ideal thing is a guy who loves winning, has fun winning, but but just hates to lose. Where it's like like so much so that he could have like an all-star kind of Hart Trophy kind of a year, and you lose in the postseason, and any postseason travel he had planned, he canceled because he's miserable.
Yeah.
So
one of the other things Danny said, he was asked about restricted free agent offer sheets. This came up on 32 Thoughts as well. And Fried said that, if there's going to be a lot of people around the league feel like the Flyers are a team that could really be in that because they have all their picks and they have supplemented picks in, next year's first round. And obviously you don't use this year's draft picks in an RFA offer sheet. It has to be going forward, and they have to be your picks. They can't be acquired picks to use. But when Danny was asked about it, he said, well, in an RFA offer sheet situation, you're probably going to overpay.
Yeah. and you also
really jumped out to me.
You also have to watch your own flanks, right? Yeah. Because the Flyers aren't the only team that are looking at that. Look at the way that Tyson Forster finished the year, for example. Mm-hmm. You don't think other teams notice that?
No, they know,
right? And other teams going, you know what? They have a talent nucleus, whatever. We bring him here. This could be a guy who really takes off here. 30 plus goals. Look at all the other things he does.
Yeah, we got a power play that works.
Let's roll the dice here. Let's go for it with an offer sheet. So you basically, would force the Flyers to match it at a higher price than
drive up their price of business. Yeah,
that's I mean, so it's a two-way street there. So the Flyers have to be ready to go in with their eyes open to go after guys that they want, but they also have to be mindful of the overall budget where you want to the more flexibility you have, I think the more you reduce the risk of somebody trying to come and grab one of your guys that you want to keep,
because you can thwart it.
So I think they have to keep both things in mind.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Kotkaniemi situation with Carolina. I mean, it turns out to be ridiculous, that whole thing, the way it played out. But that's Carolina, which is just a strange franchise to me. But I digress. The thing about it is too, like, there are levels of offer sheet. Not any offer sheet costs you 4 first-round picks. That's the max type thing, where you're going after a Bedard, but a guy like a Gabe Vilardi or a Mason McTavish,
and there's also the, not even necessarily making an offer sheet, but the just putting the noise out there that you very well might do that.
Can create conversation.
So you can use that as leverage to try to force a trade.
Yep.
And that might actually be the first step. I mean, we all know that the Flyers' pursuit of Shea Weber was ill-fated because he signed the offer sheet, and then the Nashville owners used their own wealth because it wasn't in the team budget to match it. So that pursuit didn't work. But what the Flyers tried to do before was they tried to say, we're going to offer sheet them if you don't trade them to us.
Yeah.
They tried that, and it didn't quite work out. And they
boiled it and buy it.
Chris Gratton, because that was an offer sheet, but it became a trade.
Yeah.
So they traded they didn't match it. Then they flipped the picks right back to the Flyers, and they got, I think, Michael Renberg and Carl Dykhouse for them. That's a strategy that's out there, totally legal to use. So there's different ways of going about it. The Flyers they'd be doing themselves a disservice, and the fans too, who want to see this team get better, if they don't explore every possible avenue, whether it is an offer sheet, whether it's trying to work a trade around a potential offer sheet, and you also have to sometimes it takes quality to get quality. Where I mean, the Flyers have some pieces here that other teams would like, maybe not as the lead dog in a trade. Look at the year, for example, that the Noah Cates line just had, right? I think I'm not saying they're going to trade Bobby Brink, or I'm just using Brink as an example, but that's a guy who other teams what a good complimentary piece he was this year. He's on a budget-friendly deal. That might be a guy as a piece of a trade. That kind of a player, not a centerpiece, but pieces you could add in with a
to accumulate a really good return.
Yeah, where the Flyers have the first-round picks to play with. They have guys that are now in the NHL or so on the younger side who have some value.
Then you got guys like Bump.
How do you combine some of these things?
You got Alex Bump, whose stock is really high.
Yeah.
I mean, Bill, they found a player in this kid, didn't they? Yeah. I don't know what he's going to be at the NHL, but he couldn't possibly have shown for himself. Like we talked about Kolosov and, not liking how his year went. Alex Bump went to work. I mean, first of all, he came in year to year from those.
Yeah.
I mean, the physical difference in his body was really pronounced. Yes. Makes the change, doesn't go to Vermont, goes and does what he did this season. I mean, just gets after it, joins the Phantoms right out of the box. Just looks like he's just pushing pace on every shift.
He's come right out and been their best offensive player, truthfully. He's making so many plays.
But he's just pushing so much pace to the game when he's out there. And even if he's not a part of a scoring play, I feel like he's just dictating a lot of terms on the ice.
Yes.
Looks confident.
He has a ton of quickness. If you put a stopwatch on him, he's not the fastest guy, but he's quick. And that's more important.
Thinking quick, too.
Yeah, quick.
2 more things, Bill. I have a theory, and I don't know if it's true. We'll find out in time. But Sean Couturier, I was really surprised that in a recent article, he kind of went where he went in regards to his relationship with John Tortorella. And then he did it also at Exit Day. And he obviously, since the dismissal of Torts, really took off. I mean, I thought he finished the year really strong.
Yeah.
He hadn't looked like this in any stretch to me since he returned from the back injuries. It was the closest he's looked to pre-back juncture, maybe the beginning of last year.
Yeah,
Off that really good start.
last November, particularly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but he's playing with
and
Michkov and Konechny
remember,
too.
he had 30 points through the first 40 games. So, which considering after 2 back surgeries, then he got injured in the middle of January, and that was really kind of that.
But my theory is what is the Sean Couturier going forward? Well, he felt like he was being pushed aside.
Yes.
If he doesn't feel like that,
yes,
I think I'm not saying it's 76-point Sean Couturier.
No,
but could it be 60-point Sean Couturier?
As long as he stays healthy. I mean, that's the thing. Last year he had a pretty tough injury. I mean, he only missed a few games. He came back from it, but it was just one of those nagging kind of, and he never played the same again. And even this year, it was a weird year, right? Because he started out slowly, was actually, and this was another gauntlet to him. He was put in the fourth line. You remember? At the home opener, no less. And on wing at that. Yeah. And the head coach basically said, I don't think he can keep the pace in the league anymore. That I think he needs to play. Yeah, that didn't last very long because he went right back to center again. And then very shortly after that, he had his first hat trick since the 2018 playoffs. That 5-point game that he had. But he was up and down. I mean, he could have played better in stretches, but you could say that for darn near everybody on the team.
Yeah, there's nobody.
I don't think he's done by a long shot as long as he's healthy. Yeah. And I do think, there are things that stay behind closed doors in the room and whatever. I don't think he was alone in his estimation in feeling pushed aside. I think it's fair.
No doubt. And I think the interesting thing, too, is the way he finished the year, and he did it with a player like Michkov and Konechny.
Yeah.
I just thought he was on it. I thought he was on his reads, the way he was attacking using his we know he's a really smart hockey player.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And it mitigates his lack of foot speed. He's never been – he said it, too. He's never been really fast. But he thinks the game at a very high level. So I'm encouraged by that as we end the season. Last thing, Bill, obviously the coaching search moves really far up the chain here. Danny said they hadn't officially started that process yet. And maybe there's some official thing you need to fill out. Of course, they've started it. They're talking about it.
Yeah.
Of course, there's discussing, what do you think about that? Things, text chain, all of that stuff. Yeah. But I thought it was really clear in Danny's presser that Danny's in charge. And you consult a coach of varying experience levels, but the notion of a triumvirate and kind of the seat at the table for the next head coach probably isn't going to be in the cards. To me, Danny really kind of walked in and said, I got the con now, like the hunt for Red October. Yes. He's got the con. He's in charge.
Yes, and I think it needs to be.
It can't be murky.
Over and above all. And I think that it's been kind of the way that the league has changed and developed to a large extent, but I think gone are the days where unless the guy's like a coach of just immense experience and stature, right? But the GM's going to have a lot of say in who the assistants are, right? And I think part of what Danny said, because they do want to speak to the assistants first if they are going to make changes on the like leave openings for talk with the next head coach and develop that staff. You owe it to the assistants to actually meet with them face to face, and we're probably going to look in another direction, or we're in the case of Brad Shaw, where I was actually encouraged where Shawzy kind of said, you know what, I would be open if there's not a head coaching spot on the cards, I would be open to coming back as an assistant, because I know the Flyers would love to have him. And,
they value him.
And any head coach would love to have Brad Shaw as staff. So I don't think it'd be a hard sell for anybody, for any coach. But in terms of other pieces of the staff, I think there's wiggle room in there, and that's just the nature of the beast. It's a business.
Yeah, Brad. I think Brad Shaw falls into a different pedigree in that regard, and that's been earned. And I mean, first of all, he obviously is an insanely intelligent hockey man. His resume, just in what he's done here, don't even go back to Columbus and Wierenski and all that. You don't need to do. What he's done here is he has put together one hell of a resume for developing defensemen or fixing defensemen too, that are further into their career. And he's an incredibly likable man. So,
really nice guy,
I mean, he's earned that. So, I mean, if you go, okay, we're hiring our next coach and we're just going to turn everything over, then I would be like, you might be missing an opportunity here to keep a really good one in-house. And I think that they see that for sure, too. The last thing in regards to Danny, I thought he made it really clear, Bill, too. Regression in some players, and everybody needs more. We need more from everybody. There's an accountability being preached out of that general manager office that I don't think we've seen since Homer. Verbalized.
That's a good comparison. Yeah. It's like everybody needs to be, there are guys who took a step forward, but within the guys who took a step forward, there's room to take another step.
Yeah. Just because you took a step forward, that's not enough.
Right. Exactly.
That's what he's saying, which I love.
Exactly. That needs to be the message. And there are guys like Owen Tippett who carried very advanced expectations this year and did not meet them.
Yep.
It was okay. He had stretches where he was strong. We know how he is as a player. Those kind of guys need to live up to what they need them to be.
Yeah.
And if they're not capable of being at that level, you have to rethink it. And that's part of the accountability too. It's like, well, your salary doesn't save you, and your term doesn't necessarily save you. Your performance is really what's going to count, and that I think needs to be the messaging. And so far, so good with that.
Totally agree. Read Bill's work at PhiladelphiaFlyers.com and at NHL.com. We'll be back Wednesday. We got taped. I think I taped 16 or 18 interviews on Friday, and we'll get our exit day interview series kind of kicked off and a schedule kind of put in place. We got a lot coming up though. Head coach search, draft lottery, draft obviously. Keeping an eye on the playoffs as well. Bill will join us again next week. But everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time on a brand new Flyers Daily.